like 25, but I went from that crappy hotel band to a better hotel band. And then I got so tired of top 40, and then what I really wanted to do was rock, so then I got into rock and roll bands, and they don't work as well.
Did you write?
Yes, that's right.
You write a lot of your material.
Yes. I have a
And
lot
you're
of
not
it.
going to sing any of this for us.
No, today no. But I still play, and since I was.
What do you listen to? And what are you playing?
Okay, well, I grew up listening to all everything that was ever made in the 60s and 70s and 80s, everything. And, but as of like 2 years ago, I decided that I didn't need to hear that anymore. I've heard it enough. And I switched to like jazz, and I spent the last 2 years just listening to all the old great jazz and all the new jazz players. So now I know who all the guitar players are around America and Europe. And one time, like 2 New York Comic-Cons ago, I took a Friday night and went down to Greenwich Village to the bar next door, which is a popular jazz place, and saw a guitarist play there and talked to him about it. So I follow them and try to encourage them and everything. And it's funny because as I follow guitar players and all that, they have a lot of the similar situation in their world that we have in comics and publishing, which is their industry.
They're not making any
It's
money.
not very easy to work in. Yeah, they're not. And you can be a great cartoonist or a jazz guitarist, and you're still just working in your region. You're lucky to work in your own region. And it's finally gotten to the point where if you don't think you can get published easily through one of the obvious routes, then you can go crowdfund, finally. Or you can build up your audience online, which is what artists and musicians do, build up your artists online. So that when you do some crowdfunding, there's already 50,000 people heading towards your crowdfunding.
It's gotten so, I won't say inexpensive, but affordable to produce a CD or to publish a comic, or that it's sort of freeing. And when I did some self-publishing, it was sort of a watershed moment when I realized that I could do really anything that a publisher could do, but they couldn't do what I could do. And it was really like, okay, they may have lots more money to be able to get all sorts of places, but there was all that really interesting and totally time-consuming guerrilla marketing that you could do, and you could get stuff from all over the place. It was fun, but it was also at a certain point I realized that really what I wanted to do was draw. I didn't want to be on the phone guerrilla marketing something, although that was an interesting creative thing that could happen, but really it was better to sit there and draw and let other things happen.
Well, sometimes with books or any creative thing, the first half of the job is make it. The second half of the job is to get it out into the world.
Yeah.
And it takes a different mindset. You know, it's one thing to drift off into Neverland and come up with something and capture it, but then whether or not the world ever sees it depends on what you do after that. And we all have this myth, this kind of parental myth, that somebody will find it and nurture it and take it out and do big things with it. You know, like there's
a publisher, a printer.
Used to be called publishers.
A movie studio would come and buy all the rights from you and take it and do whatever they want, and you won't get any money. Yes.
Yeah. So it's disheartening to realize that.
Usually make it into a musical.
Unless you
they could ask you to
yourself.
write all the songs for the musical, and then it would all work.
I have them written.
Okay.
All that's music and lyric and stuff in Stranger in Paradise is real songs that are on the computer.
When's the album
You never
come out?
released a CD.
Yeah, no.
What's the matter with you?
I know.
It needs to happen.
That piece is-
Kickstarter.
Yeah, Kickstarter. I listen to indie music channels on the radio when I'm in the car, and I would listen for 2 solid weeks to indie music, and not once did I hear a singer who could sing on key. So I'm afraid that my stuff would be the same way.
Things that make you sing and it'll make it in.
They're not using it, they're doing their own little warbly, I'm gonna get there sooner or later, run to the note or something, you know, they just gotta work around the note.
The XM, what a Sirius XM thing that I have on the radio in the car. Sometimes I turn it to the coffee house channel, I think is what it is. It's all singer-songwriters, and they've all been to the same class, and they've all, I mean, after a while, you're like, God damn it, give me another tempo, sing about something else. But what you're saying is, like, everybody wrote the same song.
These are all metaphors for books as well. So,
Yeah.
young writers and all that. But one of the things that's driving me crazy is I remember a story about the Beatles photographer who took the Hard Day's Night photos of the four, and he took that in the hallway of one of the hotel rooms in New York and just kind of used a sidelight and got that photograph. So those photographs were really famous for 10 years during the 60s. And somebody interviewed the photographer, who was just an old guy with, you know, from another generation, and they asked, do you listen to the Beatles music? And he said, no, I'm sorry, the rhythms are just too simple for me, I prefer jazz. You know? So he's listening to Miles Davis and Bill Evans and Cannonball Adderley and all that, and so he didn't like the pop rhythms. So I always thought about, that's weird, that doesn't make sense to me. And then after this last 2 years of just binging on jazz, now when I went to the indie channel on the radio and listened to it for 2 weeks in the car, everything is on the C major scale. And it's like just tunes you could make up just wandering down the hall, like and I'm like,
Quote him on that.
Yeah, that's my song. That's one of my songs. That's my theme song.
But it's like every woman is zeroed in on Taylor Swift. They want to all be singing like Taylor Swift. I don't know what the male equivalent of that is, but it just like,
Harry Styles.
And then I'll go, you have all these channels, and you go down, you can have the, Jimmy Buffett channel, you know.
And he just passed away.
He just passed away, which is really sad. And sometimes I never listened to much Jimmy Buffett, but I would pay attention, because you're in the car and you're driving, and there's not much else to do except not to hit the next car. And
that's your mission when driving. I was going to point B, but your mission is to not hit him.
But you know, I'd listen to his songs and went, oh, that's really good. That's a nice lyric stuck in there and stuff. So, and it's kind of interesting playing. You know, there's a jazz channel, there's a this channel. There was very briefly there was a Neil Young channel. That was all good songs, but the voice would get to you after a while. So,
you know, in writing all those songs since I was 13, it's like writing poetry. So I have that line, that short line, and I've given myself these meters and these deadlines. I have to get a thought in 7 words, a thought in 5 words, and then a beat. And it has helped me so much when I switched to cartooning. Cartooning and getting, say you were doing comic strips, you have that finite space to communicate something profound. And if you think that's a stupid idea, then look at Calvin and Hobbes. Look what he did in 6 inches of the newspaper every day.
amazing.
And that's like the line of the song, that one line you remember, you know. And there's a real master to it, and that's why some poets that worked 100 years ago are still quoted, because that one line, man, that nailed it. And it really helped the song. Looking for that in songs and doing songwriting as a discipline was like writing poetry, and it helped me so much when I got to comics. Even if they're having a conversation, that I need to say something succinctly that will have power. I'm not just killing time with this conversation. It has to be memorable, you know. And there's a way, like when I talk about something, I talk all around it and describe the trees and the leaves. But in the characters, they just punch straight for the trunk, you know, and it's a real discipline.
Someone online, I don't know whether this is official or whether they're probably violating copyright, but they're posting the Calvin and Hobbes once a day. And instead of having a giant book that you're reading, 30 or 40 pages, you just one, 4 passages. And sometimes it's intensely profound, going, oh my God, I can't believe you thought of that. And it hits you a lot differently than, gobbling up one whole book or whatever.
I love stuff like that where that art is cute and it sucks you in. And it's like something
And then it
nature.
slaps you in the face with reality. I have a friend, Phil Trumbo, who did a lot. He designed and animated the opening credits to Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. Did tons and tons of stuff. But before that, he would do these paintings, and he has one that is a really cute bunny, and it has that sort of Disney look, and you're going into it going, oh, this is really nice, and then you realize he's got a knife in his hand and he's cutting his fingers off. And you're like, wow! And it's a really interesting kind of way to think about it. I don't ever think that way, but I look at it and go, sometimes I wish I did.
See, I do think that way, and I think when I look at cartoonists in general, cartoonists, guys, people who label themselves that way, what I see that we all have in common is go straight to the worst case scenario. And that's why you talk to cartoonists and they all read National Lampoon, they saw every Simpsons, all that kind of stuff, Mad Magazine, because if something, whatever I see happen that stimulates, something's going on, I immediately picture nukes and landing UFOs. I just don't have that grounded. I guess I can get that way, but it's more entertaining to sit. If you have to say you're as a little kid in church and you have 20 minutes with that guy up there at the microphone, and I'm picturing
my best drawing done then.
I got my best imagination. I would just picture all the kind of things that could go wrong with that guy up there with the microphone. And that's how I got through the 20 minutes, and then I got home and draw that.
It's, getting that idea is really, I have a novel that came out a year ago. I'm remembering this because I just gave a copy of it. But it took me 12 years to finish, to get it to the point where I thought it could be published. And, but I can still remember starting it, and I woke up and I'd had a dream and I could still remember it. And the dream was, for some reason I knew I was in fairyland. I don't know why, because it was a vast plain of dead grass. And there were 2 people on a motorcycle racing across it, and they were leaving a trail of burning grass behind. And I was way up high looking down at it, and I knew that it was like dead fairyland. And I woke up and I immediately started thinking of, because they were on a motorcycle, thinking of Richard Thompson's song, Vincent Black Lightning, which is an incredible song. I love that song. So then I knew what the bicycle was like, what kind it was, which is what is it, Vincent Black Lightning, 1952. And then I put on my clothes and I got ready to go in the studio. I used to live, it took me 20 minutes to drive into my studio in town. And the 2 people on the motorcycle started talking. And, metaphorically, I didn't think they were real, but the conversation started happening and they started telling me a plot. And I got to the studio, and for the next month and a half, for the first hour or so, hour and a half, I let that conversation keep going, and the story just flowed on out, and I would type it up. And by the end of that, say 2 months, I had beginning, middle, and end, and it was pretty exciting to have. They were all talking to me. I went, okay, I'm going to listen. Why am I not? And then it took 12 years of rewriting and fixing it, dropping characters in and out, and doing all these things to it, because we've had this conversation. The eraser is the best tool any artist or any writer or anybody has ever had. You should always be able to change your mind. And eventually, I'd rewritten it enough and found someone that could edit everything and make me have all the same tense the whole book. Because no matter how much I studied, I couldn't get how do you keep it past tense? How do you keep it this? Drove me crazy. And it was really exciting to have it finally out, and then try to remember all the people that helped me through the whole process and stuff. I think I missed a couple of my dedication pages, but it's always, you know, these things. I had another story that I was working on Rose with Jeff, and I got a call, and they went, well, we just figured out that if we don't get the book done by such and such date, then it's returnable, and that'll be disaster. I said, I can do it. They went, how are you gonna do whatever it was, like, there were about 26 pages to color. How are you gonna do that in a couple of weeks? I went, I'll do it. And I did. I worked really, really hard. And I would let myself go on the Creeper Trail, was in the studios here in Abingdon. I'd get on the Creeper Trail and I'd walk for about 45 minutes each day to get my head out of being painting. And I was walking down the trail, and this squirrel jumped out of the woods, and it started running toward me and had an acorn in its mouth. And my storytelling brain completely kicked in so quickly, and in my mind, the squirrel hopped all the way up to me, dropped the acorn at my feet, looked up at me and went, enjoy the quest, and ran off. And from that point on, the story just kept reeling on out, and I would scribble it down. And after I got Rose done on time, and it wasn't returnable, I had this mammoth pile of notes, and I wrote down the whole story and stuff, and so I have that novel. And you know, I just, sometimes these things come out of the blue, and you're like, okay, I'm not ignoring this, I'm gonna write it. So, do you ever have things just come out?
Yeah. You know, in my mind, that squirrel would have run at me, tossed me the acorn and said, hold this, and then he'd disappear, and then a horde of 100 angry squirrels are coming at me, and then jump me and because that
Well, you write that book.
That acorn was the one.
Yes.
You know what, you just kind of described how I got started on Stranger in Paradise, which was I had characters in my mind, but I didn't know what to do with them. I've been doing comic strips with them. And then I finally I couldn't click with it. I couldn't find a story until I just pictured one moment between them. And it wasn't the beginning. Page 1 is the hardest one. So I pictured page 20, you know, and wrote backwards from there. And that's the best writing advice I can offer. Don't start at page 1, it was a dark and stormy night. Start with the argument that was in that started the whole idea. You know, maybe you picture a divorce fight or something, and write it, and then work backwards. You know, it's so much easier. Follow the inspiration first. You know, usually when people are having trouble in life, they go to a friend and say, "What do you think I should do?" And usually the best advice is something. Basically, follow the love. You know, one route is giving you a lot of grief. One route wants to hug you, go to the hug. And it's the same way in creative stuff. You're trying to figure out how to get them all started in the morning of the story, but you have that lunch scene in your head, meeting for lunch, and the conversation goes wrong. Start there.
Yep.
You know,
Don't ignore it. When they start talking in your head, write it
down. Because and the thing about, and then you may only have like that much of it in your head, and it's amazing how once you start the momentum, the next thing, you can't think of it just in theory, but once you actually start the conversation on paper, the answers come, and retorts, and then what they said next.
Yeah, it was like, quicker, faster, faster.
It's like making up a lie on the spur of the moment, you know, it's like the officer saying, have you had a drink today? No, but you know what? We were at this cafeteria and it was really good. Have you eaten there? You know, you're thinking quick. There's something about the
The
dynamic.
guy next to me was having a drink. That's why you could spell.
And they spilled it all over me again and again. And then there were these squirrels.
I wanna see the squirrels.
My skill, I'll draw one for you. In my version, they're really, don't mess with them.
That story, which has never been published, but it became, I decided to tell it as text, to tell it as graphic narrative, and to tell it as illustration. And and this really wonderful moment happened when I was doing this little vignette drawing. And I went, I can put a word balloon in there. And I put the word balloon in there, and the drawing became text. And it was the whole thing, and it's, you know, there's books that you'll read and you go, you know, that would look so much better if it was drawn. And there's other scenes that, you know, I would always have comic scripts and I'm going, why does this need to be drawn? You know, why do I have 10 pages of people talking? And it's really boring. So this was my solution for it, which also scared any editor they ever saw, looked at it. It was like, oh my God, what is this? What do I do? Like, it's a book. It's telling a story. So it's another thing. It's another Kickstarter or something. I've got a couple.
And it's really important whether you want to show it, I want to show you what this looked like, or you needed to describe it. And
Yeah.
I did a book called Molly and Pooh, and it was mostly prose.
Right.
And it was on purpose. And because I did some illustrations for it, but there were scenes there where I wanted you to use your imagination. Because like for instance, there's one story I have where this person has a box, what's in the box, kind of box,
right.
And we never see it, what's in there, but it's a box with her vice in it, and it's a problem in the marriage, and it's there on purpose as just, it's as a symbol of that imperfection each person carries. And one of the things you carry with you from like a Greek story. So, but I actually drew a box, you know. But it's so much better to leave it to the imagination. If I don't show what's in that box in that story, then everybody puts their own vice in there. And that's
if you've got the viewer participating in the story, then it works.
Yeah.
And you know, they can think of a million different things that are in there, but it's okay. It's all okay. It's all part of the story. There's various times when I did this book, published this book, and I just wanted to do it. I knew who would do it right. Nobody got paid, and you could only get it from the publisher and myself. It's called Walking Through the Landscape of Fairy. I asked all these writers I knew for some poetry, and put artwork next to the poetry. Neither one was written for the other, and the hope was that you would read the poetry and look at the art, and the viewer would come up with their own story, start formulating their own stories. I don't know whether that's worked, but I sure enjoy looking at that book. So.
When you're doing your stories, do you realize that you're putting an avatar in there? That all of the reader needs an avatar in the story so that we're connected in there, we're in there somewhere. Like, say in Peter Pan, our avatar is Wendy. None of us are Peter. We're all Wendy looking at
some people are Tinkerbell.
In our dreams. But you know, we're Wendy, we're grounded
Yes.
and looking at this amazing stuff and these eccentric people and all this stuff going on around us. And then we come back and spend the rest of our lives thinking about it. So
It's when you see, especially in a movie, but other times you see stories or read stories, and there's nobody you want to be. There's nobody you like. That's when I will walk out of a movie.
Where everybody stinks.
They could all die,
Yeah.
and I would be
They're all
okay with
alive.
that. And you're like, okay, well, I'm leaving. You know, because there's no reason.
I don't care what happens to any of those characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that's-
fortunately, we have a movie theater in town, and my studio used to be maybe 4 minutes from there. So I'd be like, and I go to a matinee, and it was $4 for the theater, and you're like, you start watching and go. If I started thinking about work, get out of there. If you didn't like any of the characters, I would leave. It was easy, and unlike if I lived in New York City and it cost $100 to get in the movie theater, and it was a half an hour from the house, from the apartment, it would be a different kind of deal, but still, it's just, you know, stories are worth something, and you should be involved in them, and if you're not, then get out of there.
Okay, so change the tone here. We're talking about how we want to live our day and work and inspire. What about sticking your head out in the real world and somebody ruining your day, or how do you get through a critique or a disappointing review, or has there been things like that that just, oh boy, you said the wrong thing to Charles?
Well, yeah,
How do you get
of
past
course
that?
there has, but I can't think of any, because I would ignore them after a while, you just,
Yeah.
you know,
It just roll off your back?
different people have different, what they want is different. It's, something just recently, what was it? Oh, okay, the publisher of this limited edition publisher that's doing Peter Pan, they're also doing a Joe Hill book called Fawn. And I would go on their their Facebook page, and I would read various comments. And there are all these people that would just totally disregard Peter Pan because, you know, it's just foo-foo fairy stuff. And Fawn was the be-in and the end-all. I'm like, and it's just weird. And I remember when I think Sin City and Stardust came in the same year, and there were all these people celebrating that Sin City made all this money, because Stardust was like this stupid comedy for them. And you just like, well, why are you even, does that make that better just because you like it? And it's always that way. It's just what they like. I got some very, not many, but a couple really lousy reviews of my novel, and it just, you know, they wanted something else, or it was someone that didn't want to be reading a book from an old white guy, that kind of thing. And you're like, well, there's no old white guys in the book, but and there's this whole thing going on with, you know, you have to be correct. You can't, you know, an old white guy should not be writing a story about anything other than old white guys. And you're like, well, that's boring. I'm sorry. So the characters in this book are, one is an 18-year-old boy who has lived in Fairy for 100 years, so he's 118, I suppose, and has a certain amount of wisdom from that. And then the young girl is has a rich father in Inverness, Scotland, and her mother was Caribbean, and she's, you know, half white, half black, but been kept away from most people because of the father. And you know, some people just weren't gonna like it because I wasn't like someone from the Caribbean or whatever. And you're like, that's sort of really limiting. You know, it just depends on the story, what you're doing with the characters, what you've learned before you write about the characters.
Mm-hmm. It's treacherous.
It is treacherous. It's very, there's a whole, especially in science fiction fantasy, there's a whole movement of making it as correct as possible. And sometimes, you know, art is not correct. It will never be correct. Or there is some correct art, and it's usually really boring. But, and you have to, you know, you gotta respect some things, but.
You know, I've never read anything, but have you ever seen or heard of anything where the classic old writers were dealing with that in their time, like Barry or anybody? Was there pushback?
I don't know, there's a whole pushback on, there's a horror writer, H.P. Lovecraft, which, you know, I read him in college. I've never read him since because I've never been compelled to read him. But apparently, if you read him with any kind of knowledge, he hated Jewish people. He didn't really like women. He certainly didn't like black people. So that's reflected in a lot of his stories. And there was, in fantasy genre, there was an award, and it was the Lovecraft Award. It's a World Fantasy Award, but it's a very peculiar, was a statue about this tall, It was sculpted by Gahan Wilson. I don't know if you know Gahan Wilson, but it was a portrait of H.P. Lovecraft as if he was an Easter Island statue, which is just the weirdest thing. And so there's this big, strange, ugly-looking face staring at you, and you just won this award, and you're really happy.
The Hugo Award, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is the World Fantasy Award.
Oh, World Fantasy.
The Hugo
Then you
Award's a
have 4
rocket
of
ship.
them,
Yeah,
don't
I've
you?
got 4 of them.
They're
But
lined
they've
up there
changed it.
like you've
They-
landed near an island.
There, as more and more younger writers came on, and they were all of different cultures, and they were winning these awards, and they were having a really hard time having this statue on the thing. And most awards aren't named after or of a particular writer, and any writer whatsoever. There's always going to be something wrong about them that you can find out stuff. So it's really better, like the Hugo is a spaceship. Okay, a spaceship will work. And the World Fantasy Award's gone to it's sort of a twisted tree with the moon in the sky. And it's pretty neat. So, yeah, so they changed it and pissed off a lot of older writers who love H.P. Lovecraft, because there's a huge sort of cottage industry of Cthulhu and all that horror, which I'm like, I don't understand. There's lots of things I don't understand. There's artists, I have a friend of mine that absolutely adores Godzilla and King Kong. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Not for me. But you know, that's it. And that's what he wants to talk about. And you're like, okay. Whatever. You know, and he probably is looking at me going, what are all these fairies? I hate these fucking fairies. So, you know, it's got to be all of it. So.
Yeah. So there is, at some point, there takes some sort of brave commitment to this is, you got to wear it, own it. This is what I do.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. This particular artist has, but he just starts raging at people that don't like it. You know.
They don't like Godzilla?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I grew up.
Isn't that somebody you want to just go push
I
his
never,
buttons
even when I was a
anyway?
kid, I would watch this go, this is stupid guy in a rubber suit smashing fake cities down. What is this?
I saw Godzilla last week and he is way smaller than I thought he was. He's like a little guy. He was trying to cross the street, nobody would let him.
Yeah. Yeah. What is this? What are they doing in Houston? What's in the water?
Do you think visually or do you think descriptively? That when you're, say if you picturing dissing Godzilla, do you think of an image first, like when trying to cross the street, like
Yeah.
a loser?
Well, and years ago, they were putting together a Godzilla portfolio, Dark Horse was, and I said yes, just because I wanted to see if I could draw a picture that had Godzilla in it that I liked. You know, Mike Mignola did one, and you'd listen to Mike and the editors and Art Adams, and they just absolutely adored Godzilla. And they were talking about what new kit they had that they were putting together. And like, so I did a Godzilla that was behind a tree, and you can see the tail and a little bit of the snout and stuff, and that's really it.
Well, what's the difference between Godzilla and a dragon? You're great at dragons. What?
Yeah.
I mean, this is his
Well,
loser brother.
Dragons aren't
Just-
people inside of them. No.
They would be if they were here cosplaying.
Yeah,
I mean,
they would be.
if you
I
had
don't
to
know.
shoot a movie
I don't
with a
know.
dragon,
I have no idea.
So
It's just my thing.
that's where you draw the line.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
no Godzilla.
Okay.
You know, or listen to Bill Stout rabbit on about the original King Kong movie as the best movie ever made in the world. And I'm like,
Why? Can he?
good God, I don't know, I can't remember, because I just like listened going, what?
Okay,
You know,
here-
I like it, and there's some fun, funky dialogue that you can make really a lot of fun about. You know, I cracked up and gone wacky about you and stuff like that.
I like those old movies because they reflect the decade they were
Yeah,
made in.
yeah.
So the lingo and what it was to be a macho guy changes every decade, and so you get to see that version of the 30s and the version. I like the new Godzilla, not the new one, but King Kong. The one that was made with, Jack Black? Was that the one?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I like the parts of that, it's still,
I like the parts where they were. Bye, guys, thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot.
Enjoy.
I thought that was remarkable in that when they did a close-up of King Kong's face, there was intelligence in that computer eye, and I don't know how they did that, but it was remarkable. But then, that whole sequence in New York when Fay Ray is hanging on with her little gauzy costume on in the winter, dancing in the park, and you're like, no, come on, guys.
Dancing in the park.
Well, she's hanging on to King Kong and they're sort of skating on the park. Don't you remember that?
No.
Oh, you must have just gone to sleep by
King,
then.
King Kong did not go skating in Central Park.
Yes, he did. He gets on one of the ponds and it's iced over because it's so freaking cold. And they're spinning around on this ice. And Fay Ray's got it's not Fay Ray, it's whatever her name is.
Okay.
And you're sure this isn't another squirrel?
Were you-
No squirrels.
Did you watch this movie on Mushroom Night? Yes, I did. I saw it in Neil's
A
house.
couple times, but now there's a knowledgeable fast forward to various parts of this movie. That's really good. That's really fun. And other stuff that's like,
Okay, so are you talking about the director's cut? Was there a skating scene in the director's cut maybe? Maybe
No,
there's a
it's
3-hour version director's cut
no.
where there was actually a sex scene and then
with Godzilla.
yeah,
Oh,
sex
with
scene.
King
Yeah.
Kong.
King Kong and Godzilla.
Oh, it's big.
Oh, we're thinking visual now, huh? I'm so glad the kids left. That was stifling. I was very careful when you slipped up.
You
several
don't remember
times.
that?
No, Charles, it's
How
not
many
in
times
there.
have you seen the movie?
Naomi Watts.
I've seen it. Naomi Watts was
Yes,
gorgeous.
Naomi
Yes.
Watts.
I've
She
seen
was
that
really
movie
good.
probably a dozen times. The first one,
No,
1932.
the
whatever.
one, the Jack Black one.
Oh, the Jack Black one. I watched it 3 times only because, not because of Jack, but because of Naomi. She was
She's
just
really good.
charming.
She's really good.
And the way they had their quiet
Especially in the
connection
gauzy
scenes.
thing.
You keep going back to the gauze, dude. I was gonna talk to you about them watching a sunset quietly together and then watching that last sunset.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
We're
come
getting
on.
serious.
Open up your heart.
It did.
And then there was the gauze.
Yeah.
You gotta watch a
And the
sunset before you get to the
dinosaurs, the
gauze.
endless amount of dinosaurs. It's like, I would love that
Yeah.
movie if they let me get at it with an editor. You just edit like 45 minutes out of it, and I would watch
No,
it lots of
no,
times.
because what you would, are you gonna add up the the guys and all their crap, or are you gonna leave in all the
I'm
dinosaurs?
just chopping out some of the dinosaurs. It's
No,
like
no,
when
no,
they-
no, no.
When they're running down there and there's like 20 minutes of big dinosaurs almost falling off of the.
That's the only part of that movie, I guarantee you, and everybody here is going to agree with me 101%. That's the only part of that movie that Bill Watterson liked, was the dinosaurs in the jungle on the island. Am I wrong? You know Bill Watterson loved that.
Yeah.
You cut that out, he's walking out of the movie.
Oh.
If it's just Jack
Oh.
Black trying to, ring a deal,
Oh, okay.
no.
So you can cut some of that out too.
Yeah.
All of it, it's all the way through it. You can just.
What I would do is Naomi gets on the island, they hook up, they fall in love, Jack leaves,
She stays there.
happy ever after.
Yeah, yeah, because what's gonna happen when they go to New York? You know what's gonna.
Well, they're gonna
You
go
know,
shopping. In my
yeah.
version, they're gonna shop. But-
Yeah, so she doesn't have to wear the gauze.
Yeah,
all
because
that
she's gotta,
stuff.
I need some new gauze or whatever, but another layer. Does this not write itself? I mean, come on.
It could be your next graphic novel.
I will, I'll do that. I just can't get over why you have a problem with the difference between, I see very little difference between Dragon and King Kong. If you put a set of fairy wings on King Kong, you have a dragon. Or Godzilla.
Exactly, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you. I win at last. You just have to wear it down. With good cartoon line.
However, I'm not drawing it.
When we get, someday I want you to show me the version of King Kong that you have, where they go skating.
It's in
Alright.
every one.
You do the skating
Every
King
one.
Kong, you sketch
Don't
the
you
Godzilla
remember-
dragon,
don't you
and
remember
we'll
the
sketch,
Godzilla
sketch
dragon?
off between you two.
Yeah.
This is
Fairy
the
Godzilla.
Fairy Godzilla,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this is the battle we
Yeah,
all
there
want
you
to see.
go.
Yes.
Do we?
And yeah, and this is a big book. I mean, this is.
We'll get Jim Darrow to draw it. I'd buy it.
Which I would too, because I am dying to know what happens in that story.
Well, there'd be a lot of Astro Boys in the background.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you're, I'm all in for sci-fi and fantasy. So what prevents you from being all in on Marvel DC fantasy characters? You know, the myth of Superman, the myth of Batman.
They will go on forever and ever and ever, and there's no end to it, and it doesn't matter. Every once in a while, someone will actually get a personal idea put in there, and it might make a big impact, be really great, but it's never gonna, it's just gonna keep going. It's gonna be endless soap opera, always and always and always, and I just get tired of it. Anything like that, you know, just like when it becomes, oh, well, we can sell a whole lot more copies of Batman fights Godzilla.
Mhm.
Oops, oh, there's one.
There's one. I know who wins in my version. Isn't that when you give up on a TV show?
Who?
When you're watching a TV?
Who wins?
I actually, the actress win.
Batman, you get away with it.
No, Scarlet Witch wins.
Okay.
Now I'm talking to a police officer. No, but isn't that when you give up on a TV show? You
Yes.
watch like 3 seasons and they still haven't figured out their problems and they're just looping and you figure, you're hopeless, dude. You're never gonna get it right, and you give up on the show.
You know, it's, you know, a very classic one is Lost. I mean, the first couple of seasons were brilliant, wonderful, and compelling, and then they didn't know what they were doing, and they just kept going around in circles, and you're like, no, I don't need to
I'm
see
out.
this, I'm out.
There was one movie that was advertised as it's coming, and I had no interest in 3/4 of the movie. I never want to see another one like that again. But in the advertisement, the trailers, there was the last third of the movie part, and I thought, whoa, that I want to see. I've never seen that before. And it was Tom Hanks' Desert Island movie,
Oh, yeah, Castaway,
Castaway.
yeah.
I don't give a shit about somebody on another damn island, you know, having to, you know, eat sand and make clothes out of palm leaves. But the difference was that this one is he goes home and they show what
Yes.
happens.
Yeah.
I'm all in. I was super interested. What happened when he goes back after 3 years to his wife, his life?
Yeah.
You know, he was a very type A business guy, on the run all the time. You know, he's different now, and how did she handle it? And then how does he rebuild? And
So have you ever seen
it's all
it?
in it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I loved it. I mean, I suffered through another hour and a half of a man on a hot island with nothing but a coconut shell, and suffered through it just to get him back to watch what would happen when somebody like that goes back. So there's some stories like that that you just don't want to see again, that you don't want to see them again, unless somebody put a twist at the end, you know, and you're willing to do it one more time just to see that. Can you think of a story like that for you? You don't ever want to see that one again. Not just a bad story, but I mean, a genre.
If it can be a comic, it would be
genre.
Watchmen. I thought it was brilliant until I got to the end. I went, that's a Twilight Zone episode. I know this story already. That's stupid.
Mhm.
And I've never been able to read it again. Because it's just like, I'm not going through all that work to get to that ending. It's just not happening.
That's a problem with a lot of sci-fi, I find, is that the reader, the writer, my problem is with the writer believes in nothing. And at the end of the story, there is no hope. I only like stories with hope. There's a reason for us to get up tomorrow morning again and try again.
Yeah.
And some of these old writers were just like, you know what? There's no God, there's no purpose, there's no nothing. We're no different than a bean sprout. We come and go, and it doesn't matter. I don't want to talk to that guy. And I don't want to waste
Right.
a week reading his story.
Now, someone that is talked about a whole lot, Christopher Nolan. I've not liked any movie he's ever made till I got to the latest one, Oppenheimer. And it seemed like it was an hour long, though it was 3 hours. I really cared about the characters. I mean, there were things like, what was the big one with Leonardo DiCaprio and the French woman, Marianne Cotillard? Inception.
Yeah.
It had every plot point that would make you be totally involved with that relationship and want them back together again, and yet I didn't care. It just was frozen. It was great, you know, technically everything, and it's been with every single one of his movies I've watched. I don't care. They're technically amazing enough to where I'll want to go see it a lot of times. Not always, but sometimes. But this one, just that whole tearing apart of his life. He was so excited about the scientific advances that he did that he kind of ignored the moral dilemma he was putting the world into, really. And it was amazing. And then the performances were great, and Robert Downey Jr. was a great dastardly villain that gets revealed at the end.
Yeah.
And it was, I would go see that again. But most of the other ones are like, just seems useless for me.
There's that, you boil it down to just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Yeah.
And it's one of those stories, but history is full of guys who do it anyway because,
Mhm.
well, you can't stop it, you gotta pursue it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you saw all those scientists and they were so, it was like this new world that they were going for, and they were really getting each other excited and building and building and building and doing this stuff. Yet, they were ignoring the fact that what they were bringing to the world. So.
And some of it, you just can't stop it. It's that
Yeah.
ball coming down for Indiana. And we have that right now with AI in the sense that there's that applied in the way that it was meant to medical research and things like that, to speed compute some of these things and get further down the road with the space program. Then it's making terrific advances, but you're also getting AI to exist for all the jerks and thieves in the world, and there is just it's gonna be a real problem for the future. It always comes like that, isn't it? I brought you a present.
Yeah. And this is supposed to be question and answer, and we've been question and answer. Do you guys have any questions?
I think we answered everything. We discussed all the
We're
world.
not wise or air, though. We
Did
did
you
not
speak
even
about-
get near that.
Did you speak about Sandman earlier?
No.
Is that was one of your comics
Yes.
that you worked on?
Uh-huh.
Somebody was interested in it yesterday, and I hadn't heard about it before.
Have you read it? Okay.
Haven't.
What is the whole deal?
The whole deal is, there's a master of dreams, and he's been kept in a basic glass coffin for 100 years, and all sorts of things have gone wrong. And he's got a whole family of siblings that control various things. And
Is it a Netflix series now?
it has the first 12 issues or so is a Netflix series. It was really well done.
And did
There's
you
some
write
of it
it?
that's too goopy horror for me to ever see again. But, so, okay. Seemed like I talked about this. Yeah, I talked about the whole meeting, how I met Neil and all that stuff with the letter and amazing heroes that he wrote. It was great. But yeah, when he asked me if I wanted to draw an issue of Sandman, there was only about 6 issues out, and I'd been reading them because back then companies would put you on the comp list, and you get this big giant batch of free comic books every couple weeks, a month or something. And I'd been reading the Sandman, and one, I thought it was horrible art, and it was all modern horror, and there was nothing I was interested in about modern horror. So there I'm talking to this really interesting man, and we're standing in an aisle in San Diego with people passing by, and he wasn't Neil Gaiman yet, so people didn't stop. so they let us talk as long as we wanted. So he's asking me if I'm gonna if I'd like to draw an issue of Sandman, and I went, well, I'll let you know, thinking in my head, never would I draw that. But I got back home, and here came the comp copies, and after a couple months, there was the Tail in the Sand story and something else, and I realized he could write anything he wanted in here, and I went, oh, okay. So you had to call, there was no email or any of that stuff then, so I had to call him up and talk to him about wanting to do it. And in the meantime, he had found a copy of my illustrated Midsummer Night's Dream. And he said, well, I'd like to do that story again, but I really want to change all the characters. I went, okay, what do you want? He said, well, I want to make Puck a psychotic monkey. And okay, I want Oberon to be 8 feet tall in a red suit with horns. He went, okay. But then, you know, you got faxes, and the faxes were conversational faxes with the script. And, you know, he'd be talking about what Jerry Springer he was watching, or what he would watch on TV, and making comments about it, and then get back to it. And it just was and you sent faxes back and forth, and it was really kind of fun. And I realized he was really fun to work with. And I know I've talked about this sometime this weekend, of when he asked the people at DC if I could draw an issue of Sandman. They said, well, why would you want him? He's a Marvel superhero artist. Because I've been doing Spider-Man and stuff over there. And he looked at it, I'm sure, he looked at them and went, what are you talking about? You know, he is not. So I did a bunch of stuff, and then it led to Stardust. A glass of champagne in the desert air, and talking about the story. So it was all good.
How does that, like, if a writer sends you something that says, I want this, I mean, how do you work that out with the writer, but your image is something's gonna be, because they might be thinking something else.
Completely different. With Neil, it was always, he would be very elaborate. Sometimes he'd even go into how many panels he wanted on the page, but
wow.
there was always, but you can do anything you want.
Okay.
If you've got a better idea, do it, kind of thing. But with Neil, he's always writing, thinking about the artists that he's gonna be working with, and going toward them while he's writing.
Okay.
And there were things like in Stardust that, there's one big double-page spread that's the flying pirate ship coming into the tree with all these other flying ships docked on the tree, and he wrote that into the story because he just wanted to see me draw it. I said, I want to see that. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. That won't take long. So he is always really fun to work with, and it's like with the children's books I did with him. He all he did was say yes or no when he would see things, and it was those were interesting because there was really beautiful poems with no graphic impetus and no character to follow, and you had to try and figure out how to wrap it all into a picture book format and play with it. And it was the Blueberry Girl book. I don't know, are you familiar with that, Blueberry Girl? It's a really beautiful poem that he wrote for a friend of his, Tori Amos, when she was pregnant, calling her child the Blueberry Girl. And so he wrote this poem, and it was for her. And as people over the years saw the poem, he'd have it posted. He never wanted to print it. He'd read it at signings and tell people not to cut off their tape recorders. He wanted it private because it was for her. But at a certain point, they realized that it would make a really nice book. So here it was, and in it, there's 3 refrains about the ladies of fate, ladies of the evening and stuff, and you're like, at first I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna make those 3 different women from 3 different mythologies all around the world. And then it occurred to me, I think I'd just seen the movie Whale Rider, which is a beautiful movie. And I went, well, why did the fates have to be human? So they became 3 whales there, and I made them 3 flowers later on. And then I wanted a book that was for everybody. So the young girl became, every double-page spread, she was a different age and a different ethnicity. And And as I was working on it, I would show people the pencil drawings of all these things, and by the time they got done, especially if it was a woman, they'd be in tears. I went, okay, I got it, I got it, this is good. So, and he just would let you do it. You know, if it was something that he really objected to, he would have said, well, maybe you should try this or something, but he was like, let's go.
Have you ever worked with Alan Moore?
Once I did 8 pages in Promethea. Though I met him once at a convention in Birmingham, England, and I had, for the very first time, put a piece of black pudding in my mouth, and someone tapped me on the shoulder just as it went in my mouth. It went, "We'd like you to introduce you to Alan Moore," and I've got this God, awful, horrible thing that I wanted to spit out of my mouth, and I'm facing Alan going, sorry. It was very memorable. No, I'm not going to spit this on his stomach.
He was probably thinking he looks like a man with black pudding in his mouth.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And that whole tour, everyone, all the British artists and writers would say, have you met this guy, Neil Gaiman? I hadn't met him yet. And they were all upset with him because Neil admitted that he wanted to be famous and make money. And every single one of them wanted to be famous and make money, but you were British and you were not allowed to say that. He was very like, no, this is what I want. So it was pretty funny when I finally met him. I went, this guy's really nice. I'm really enjoying this conversation. So.
Yeah, because it's like Alan Moore's the opposite. Alan Moore like doesn't want to be. That's what it seems like. He hates everything. Doesn't
Right.
Like
You know, really good writer. I loved his Swamp Thing.
yeah.
So it was more, it was not a man in a rubber monster suit, which is mostly what it is, and I don't like that
Yeah.
much. So I guess it's a rubber monster suit, so I don't like that.
Oh, okay.
It's Godzilla.
I think you should draw your own Godzilla.
Yeah.
Not hiding behind a tree, but make it more like a dragon.
Yeah.
Now, if you were wearing gauze instead of a rubber monster.
Dancing in a ice cold Central Park. 'Cause
Yeah.
I lived in New York, I knew how cold it got in Central Park. I went, no, I don't care. It just,
I can't wait to tell Robin that there's a skating scene in Central Park.
well, they're
We're gonna see
sliding
what-
around the pond. It's really poetic and it's beautiful. You want to be swept up into it, but you're like, oh my God, that would be cold. I mean, you know, like, because it's not just like 2 seconds, it goes on. And then they start shooting and then the ice breaks up and then he has to grab her and take her up.
He's
you know,
committed to this.
Empire State Building,
Tell
and
the
she's
truth.
wearing
I
a
haven't seen
nightgown.
it.
She's wearing the nightgown?
Yeah, all the time. It's cold.
She did, she wasn't
didn't
at
make
the,
any comments.
she wasn't at the party, the gala party with her fine dress on, so.
It could have been, but I've forgotten how, I think you reached, I don't know how it ends up with her, the nightgown on, but it's the nightgown. And you're like, yeah, okay,
And then
I
the-
can understand the impulse for the male to show her off, cause she's really pretty, but this is cold and uncomfortable for me.
Don't you want to just sit down and watch The Matrix or something?
What does he take away from it?
Well, I like The Matrix,
You did?
the first one.
Yeah, the first one was good.
Really
Makes sense.
brilliant.
I liked the introduction of all that. You know what I like, my favorite part of stories is the discovery part. When things first arrive, you know, the ship over the city, or the Matrix, where you're just first learned about the hotel and the coin and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. That when it gets convoluted, like it went along in that ship, that's where
Yeah, the
it's
second,
tricky.
the third, the fourth.
Tricky.
Yeah, like, what is the point of this?
Has anybody ever done a follow-up story that you thought was brilliant? Oh, I like that even better.
Bride of
Anybody?
Frankenstein.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
where you
very
spend more time in the
famous.
lab. And
Yeah, yeah.
You know why I like that one? Because finally there's a woman in the story,
Yeah. Elsa.
Elsa.
Yeah.
I've drawn her a few times. Have you ever drawn her?
No.
Would you? Gauze.
Gauze.
That's a woman wrapped in gauze. What is the problem?
Maybe I'm just anti-gauze.
Maybe, I guess so.
No really
there's some other movies too that, I'm not remembering them, but I'm, like, oh, that's really, the second one's way better, or, I don't know, which Spider-Man had Dr. Octopus in it?
Um,
Is it 2 or 3 with Tobey Maguire?
mm,
But that is, I thought the first one was crap. It was, the real world things with him and the girls and all that stuff, that was fun. But when he was swinging or doing all this stuff, and then the Green Goblin, oh God, that was stupid. But they really got Dr. Octopus. I was like, okay, everything they did, and then the third movie was also crap. So, you got one, that's good. So.
You know what, I think the flying, like Goblin, on his little Goblin nominator, that's actually harder to pull off than octopus arms flailing
Mhm.
around the screen.
Yeah.
I think that's easier for them.
But I think it was more, they got this idea they were gonna put this mask on it was the Green Goblin, right? But his mouth, nothing moved, it was just this mask, and there was William Dafoe talking and coming out of the mask, the voice coming out of the mask, and it was like, God, that's stupid.
You know what? That's actually part of an artist's problem right there. You just identified, which is, I see this happen at artists all the time, where I've worked so hard to get this face to look perfect, and now when you need it to show emotion, they don't want to mess with it. Have you ever seen Batman smile or burp or talk like Elvis or no? It's always that straight line. Yeah. And they don't want to mess with it because then he kind of loses his edge, or Batman edge. And I see it a lot in good girl artists where they will work really hard to learn how to draw a pretty face, and then they don't want to draw her yelling or burping or anything because then they don't know how to draw that.
Yeah. So when I was doing Rose, and Jeff wrote it by really quick thumbnails with word balloons. So I had these pages, and there was one, and I remember showing these pages, and I got to this one panel and went, that's the emotion panel. He just started laughing. Because, it's especially that first issue of it, I was trying so hard to keep her on model, what he wanted it to look like, and then you're doing this face that's all distorted, and there's no way it's ever gonna look like what's on the model, kind of thing. So, just remember laughing at Chorley and Glee, all of the emotion panel.
I mean, you have to draw that other expression.
Yes.
It's tricky. Is there anything in your art drawing that has always been a tricky all through life you wish you could just get it right for once?
Human body. It's everything. There's this Facebook page. It's not my Facebook page. It's the Art of Charles Vess Facebook page, and they post things all the time. And this one guy likes to take an entire book and just post one page a day. But he was just posting my 1985 graphic novel, The Raven Banner, that I did for Marvel. And there were things that were just, to me, so totally cringeworthy. I know they're not seeing any of that, but I'm looking at it going, oh God, that drawing, what, that eye has crawled down on the other side of the face. And it's just shouldn't be there. So it was really a learning experience looking at it. And you could concentrate on the panels. Again, you weren't reading the whole story, just this one page. And there's most of the stuff, I grew up drawing comic books. The first comic book I ever drew was called A-Man. He had a glowing head, glowing hands, and glowing feet. So you didn't have to draw any of those things, he just bashed the crooks. It was, Atomic Man, it was.
Did you grow up in the central Nevada?
No, I grew up in Central Virginia. But I drew the first story, it was 20 pages. I just drew it on a Saturday morning. That I would keep up that pace. And I remember redrawing it at a certain point, but from then on, I would do all these comic books, and I got pretty good with the figure after 4 or 5 years. And then I got to college, and it was fine arts, and if you put a figure in the drawing, it became narrative, And if it was narrative, it was not art, and they would laugh you out of the class. So I figured out ways to do landscapes, and I did riffed a lot on George Harriman's Crazy Cat backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. And that was okay, but at the end of 4 years, I basically forgotten how to draw a figure. So it took, I don't know, years, 20 years to figure out how to get it back, to get it loose, get it going. And it's only been maybe in the last 5 or 10 years that I feel like I'm pretty good with drawing a figure and getting it moving and getting, not having the eye crawl down the cheekbone and stuff. So, and one of the things that helped me with that was I spent 3 years. If you're from this area, then you might have seen the Midsummer Night's Dream bronze outside of the Barter Theater. It's a 16-foot fountain. And it was 3 years of my life, and it happened to be when the Stardust movie came out. So that made the book sell really well, so I was getting these royalties, so I wasn't really paid very well to do the statue. But it was, the only thing I might have drawn in 3 years was maybe a pen and ink, a ballpoint pen scribble, once or twice. So when I came back to the drawing board, I was like curious to see what was gonna happen after these 3 years. And for whatever reason, where before I had a pencil and I put it between my fingers and I would draw until I scraped into the board, you know. I grabbed the pencil to the side and was drawing with my whole arm, and the gesture was there. And it was only later that I'd go back and put in details. But it was changed my whole attitude to art and the way I would approach art, and everything got better. Thank whoever did that. I don't know.
Did you draw, so did you create the statue, or they just took your art and made the statue?
Oh, I created the statue and I sculpted the statue and I poured the
So in fact,
bronze
it's like
in
you're
the
a
sketch.
so you're 2-dimensional as a drawer, though.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a, you know.
Well, it's easier.
Oh, is
Sculpting
it
is
easier?
way easier than drawing.
Oh, wow.
You know, you want a foreshortened arm?
Okay.
It's foreshortened
Yeah.
perfectly
Yeah.
after you sculpted it this way, put it in that way. But that I'd done some smaller statuary, you know, with, what is it you put in the oven and bake?
The clay.
No, it's not a clay, it's a.
Sculpting.
Sculpey. I've done a couple of Sculpies. And, you know, so the pieces are about this big. They're in my studio. And that's all I've done. And then I was approached to do this by the artistic director of the Barter, and he said, well, there's David Spence, he's gonna be working with you, and he knows how to do bronze and sculpt and stuff. So I went, okay, that's good, except that David would go for 6 months to Mexico where his family lived, and I wouldn't see him, and the Barter would go, well, I need this. And so I would sculpt the base. I did maybe 90% of that statue.
Yeah.
Sculpting, and then, you know, in the middle of the night, heating up the bronze, you know, to
Oh,
the
gosh.
2,000 degrees, and
Oh,
getting
gosh.
it to be green flame, and pouring the bronzes, and then, like, Titania's about 9 feet tall. She's 104 pieces, because it's way too complicated.
Yeah.
But you have small pieces. It's like a 3-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. Only David, at that point, had a quadruple bypass operation, and he'd be standing there, and he said, I wasn't really there. I wasn't offering any information. And the people that were doing the forms put them down incorrectly, and they flattened out. We didn't know this. Till we poured the bronze and started trying to put them together, and they wouldn't go together. And then this guy, I can almost remember his name, but I don't, who was really good with welder. We would work from 6 until 12 every night. Titania became my bronze mistress, according to my wife. And 6 to 12 every night, and we'd be cutting it apart and re-welding it and grinding it down. Titania got about 6 more inches in her hips, I forget it was from all the fairies she had.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a really long process, very involved. You know, and David's pretty much of a crook, so I didn't make much money. Yeah, we got, you know, we would never get the payouts. I would have to call Rick Rose, who's was the artistic director, and ask them for a check, and then they'd give us a check, and we'd have it. And the last bit, you know, came. He took his money. He bought himself a car. He bought his wife a fur coat. He bought his mistress a fur coat, and handed me a check for $1,000. I went, this is all I got left. Thank you very much.
Wow. So you creators have to take a lot out,
Yeah.
take a lot of step on faith, hoping that
Yeah,
people would.
but
come
you know,
back.
there it is, and it'll be there forever.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's-
it's nearby, so we could.
It's
check
in the
it out.
middle. You drive down Main Street,
Okay,
and the Martha Washington Inn, which is an old inn,
okay.
and the Barter Theater will be on the left. And directly across the street is the 16-foot Bronx.
Okay.
It's
We're
kind
not,
of
we're
fun.
not from around here.
Oh, okay. You, a question?
I have so many questions.
You do?
So many. I don't know how to sort them out. I guess my first question is, what question should I ask next?
Ah. Quick, think of something.
Well, how far do you wanna go? It's 2:15.
How are we doing? 2:15? Well, we can babble on a little bit more.
Okay.
I actually have one.
Yes?
I work with kids and stuff, and of course trends go around, come back around. And when you mentioned Calvin and Hobbes, it kind of made me think, like, there are a lot of kids right now that are really into graphic novels and art
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Calvin and Hobbes and drawing and everything. So what's one piece of advice that I can give them to motivate them? Because I'm in school to become an art teacher. And I
Okay.
want to motivate these kids to keep on that passion while they have it. So,
The first thing you have to get them to understand is the first drawing they're gonna do is not perfect, never will be perfect, and they need to be able to erase it. And that's what stops so many people is, you know, this kid will do the drawing and it doesn't look like it does in his head. So he stops, but I'm like, it never looks like it does in your head. I mean, I'm 72 and they still don't look like they do in my head. And you just have to keep doing that, and then a little bit later it's, you know, when he gets to do the wingo dating, you know, do they still want to draw too? That's the next threshold is that. So.
Well, yeah, they start and then drop it.
And they might be thinking, you know, if you, oh, there's no such thing as a career in art, but then every single thing you're sitting in and driving in and being in and eating food from, some artist has designed it. So, you know, would you rather be working at Burger King, or would you rather be designing, you know, something else? So it's just, and have fun, you know, make sure they have fun.
You know,
Get as much paper as they can have.
a lot of those kids draw the same. You know, a head and a body.
Yeah.
And if they can just, I think what keeps them going is if they can make themselves laugh or entertain themselves. Like I have an idea for my own hero, and so you draw that basic kid body, and then they just put a little detail on there that becomes their hero. You know, it's the hat or the shirt or the emblem, and just being able to personalize that doodle, that we can all do some sort of doodle, be able to inject something in there that makes it his, that or hers. That gives them a new thing to do where they can escape, because I think one of the fun things about it is giving them an outlet for their mind, all their ideas and all that. And some kids would love to be able to sit down and design their own game, or the characters for the game, or, you know, and that's the kind of stuff that you go, oh, that's so cool, you know, and because that's them trying to fly, right? So the encouragement, and they'll use any tool they can find. If it's the ballpoint pen by the phone or the crayons, the colors you give them, it's fun to have these colorful tools or something like that. I just found that when I started drawing, it was to make my friends laugh. you know, I was trying to draw what I saw in the comic books, and I wasn't very good at that.
So they were laughing.
They were laughing. I was crying. I mean, I remember I've told this story publicly, but I couldn't draw knees and stuff like that, and it was so frustrating. But I found that if I could draw a cartoon frog or something like that, then I could get that guy to drive the car, you know, off the cliff, you know, and make my friends laugh. So just something that's rewarding, you know, giving some sort of immediate reward. It really is like giving somebody, teach a dog one trick and give them a treat. You know, it's something about the reward and treat keeps them going. I don't know what it would be. It's each kid's different.
I can still remember, it's either 7th or 8th grade, that's middle grade, right? 7th or 8th. I'd been looking at Joe Kubert Army at War comics, and I had figured out the perspective on tank treads. I just did not stop drawing tank treads because it was so tickled that oh, that's the trick. You know, these circles and this tube and this, and the, you know, had the tanks, and you also, you know, had really studied when one of the tanks, you know, in the comic book, shot their cannon, the way it exploded, and you could draw that. Oh, and everybody like, can you draw me one? And you're like, I'll draw you another tank. That's the only time I've ever drawn tanks in my life. Back then.
Well, when we were kids, there was tons of World War II movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Comics and all that. You know what I can't draw that frustrates me to this day? Tires.
God.
I can draw a circle and I can draw the rings. What I can't do is ink that. It's in the cool way that it
Yeah.
looks good.
Yeah.
How do you ink it so that it looks good and you're not, I don't have color or grays or anything.
Right.
And back when I was a little kid, 7th, 8th grade, I would get Car Magazine or Cartoons Magazine, and they had a really slick way of doing it, and it looked great. The dragsters, the hot rods, and I tried so hard to do it. To this day, I still try to do it, you know, with the word, where the, all that, and it still looks like crap. And it just bothers me.
Yeah.
There's two things that bother me so much in life. One of them is I can't ink tires correctly. So I try not to ever, but it's amazing how many times you need a tire in a story.
Yes.
And the other one is in my guitar playing. I've never had a really pretty push-up and tremolo. And I would pay somebody $100 to show me how to do that. And if you go look at every single vibrato tremolo video on YouTube, they all saying the same stupid thing. And I've even watched the 45-minute long ones where I'm hoping they will get to it sooner or later. They all say the same thing, like, here's how you go to pitch. And here's how you go to the next higher pitch. And then when you're up there, just do this thing with your wrist. And now, okay, this other pitch. Whoa, wait, no, that's the part I'm having a problem with, that thing right there. I can do it by my hand alone, but when I put it on the guitar neck, it's, I'm like Frankenstein. And so it's so frustrating. There's things like that in art where they'll say, okay, so you start with the Mona Lisa. Okay, now we go to the bush. And I'm going, it makes me so mad. Not one guitar player has ever said how they're doing it. And they all say the same thing. Well, you just grab it, and then you just do like you're turning a doorknob, like that. Okay, now this other pitch thing, you can get a half pitch, a whole pitch. Fuck your pitch. Shut up. Show me this. And they won't. It's like a secret handshake into the club. And they have a vibrato, and they're very proud of it. They will not teach the young generation. This is the last generation that will ever have a vibrato. That's my bitter old man. Tires.
Tires and
vibrato.
Okay.
The world's gone mad.
I will, when I was living in New York, and I got my first job in, I guess, Marvel proper. It was for Marvel Fanfare, so it's a little different, but it was Doctor Strange. And I was trying to draw the buildings, and I was having such a hard time drawing these New York buildings. You know, I could look out my window and see there was New York, but it was really hard drawing it. And my roommate was Michael Kaluta, and he knew, I mean, he drew the shadow, and he was incredible with that, so many things. And I just asked him one day, how do you draw those buildings. And he looked at me and well, you just think about each family that lives in them. Draw them. You're like, what?
There's a part 2 to this story. So I was telling Charles one day, I work in medium close-up mostly in my stories because I don't want you staring at the room. I pay attention to the people. And my nightmare is they go out on the street and walk down the city and we have all these buildings and I have to draw those windows. And I was telling Charles one time about, I can't stand drawing buildings and skyscrapers with all the windows, and Charles passed on this advice. Just picture the people that are living behind the windows. So now when I have to draw cities, I picture the people living behind the windows, and I fucking hate them. Why are you in that window? Why didn't this could be a brick wall? And you can tell that I have some buttons you can push. Windows. Okay, now that's 3. Windows, vibrato, tires. That's all I need.
I think it's another ones that are one. Yeah, trying to draw a car. Oh gosh, I'm awful. I
I'll
can't
draw
draw
a car for
spaceships
you.
either. Years ago when I was first living in New York and I would have to take a job because, I'd like to eat. I'd do my laundry in the bathtub and I would eat so many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that, you got peanut butter oozing out your ears. And, okay, here's a job. It's 4 covers of spaceships. And I would try and try and try. And there, again, I'm next to this artist that can draw. And he would do a scene with 15 spaceships and every one of them would be different. And I'd ask him, why did you make them all different? He'd look at me and go, it's easier. God damn it, it's not easier. So these were for, oh God, it was a gaming company. There was a Creature That Ate Sheboygan, and I ripped off Jack Kirby. And then there was Titan Strike and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And all spaceships. And I had a friend, Rick Bryant, who loved drawing spaceships. And I just asked him to draw the spaceships. I did the layout and got him to pencil the spaceships, and then I inked them and painted them. This was an art director that if you made any deviation in his horrible sketch, you did it again. And
Sure.
I think it was like $250 each cover.
That kind of
Big
stuff.
deal. That was rent, and I could go out to a Chinese restaurant and have my.
Can I tell you,
things.
in a very vaguely connected way, thinking about spaceships and comics, there was one scene. Most of us are not real happy with how comics converted to film in Marvel movies, but they have their moments. And there was a scene in an Iron Man movie that I had never read in a comic, and no comic writer had ever thought of it. And I appreciate it because I have the rants that I have about what pisses me off or turns me off about Spider-Man and Batman are the logical things. And when you're dealing with Iron Man, you've got a guy in an iron cage and iron suit. You've got a lot of logical problems.
And he can fly.
And he can fly. That 2-ton thing flies. It's like trying to fly a Buick. But anyway, but there was the creative team for the movie thought of something that comic writers should have thought of long ago. And it's when I guess this movie won, the first time Robert puts on the suit, and the camera starts at his feet, and the camera works its way up the suit. And as it's working its way up the suit, all over the place there's these little vents, and it's doing a vent check where all kinds of different things are. Well, of course that suit would have vents all over the place, and hookups and little doors and things like that. And not everybody just drew like that in the comics. And the fact that it was working like a real NASA rocket where things actually, that was so cool. That was the coolest thing out of the entire Iron Man series.
The first movie is pretty fun. I can watch that.
They thought it through.
But the other ones, I just.
And again,
hated.
the discovery process, the building
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
that's the most fun part. Then after he gets that, then it's just a bunch of fighting and
They
fashion.
started off with the big clunkies, Iron Man, which he was that way
Yeah,
in
the
the
original.
comics. I remember they had asked Jeff to do a pinup or something for Iron Man, And he pleaded with them to let him draw it with the big clunky
The first
thing.
one.
And they went, no, can't do that. You need the new Spider-Man, new Iron Man. I don't know whether he did it or not, but things like, I wrote and sort of designed a 4-issue Prince Valiant miniseries for Marvel. And I knew I couldn't draw it because it was 48 pages each issue, and I would still be drawing it today if I said yes. So we got a British artist to do it. But there was enough pages in the back that I just started asking artists that I like to do pinups so they could fill up the pages. And I remember I got Jeff to do me a Prince Valiant. And it was really cool. And he gave it to me afterwards too, which was really fun. But I remember the young 20-some-year-old editor called me up going, "You sure you want to use this Jeff Smith guy? There's not many lines in it." Shut up, shutting up. You know? By then, you know, the editors you had been working for had retired or been fired or whatever. You were working with 20-year-old editors that a woman friend of mine would call fetuses. You know, and going, "I'm not listening to a fetus talk to me about my story. They don't know enough about writing yet to be able to tell me this." So.
You know who that sounds like? That sounds like every female novelist I know who's made more than a few books. They are very strong women, and they're so smart, and they don't put up with fools.
Yeah.
There's some good master classes out there about the ladies who have written a lot of novels.
There's good editors, but at every publisher, they start hiring younger and younger because you don't have to pay
They're
much.
cheaper, right?
They're cheaper, and then you've got someone that's just out of school and they don't have much life experience, and they're editing someone that might be 20 years older than them and that has written 10 or 15 novels, and it's like, you really do need an editor. It's really, really necessary, but not someone like that, so.
A question on the vein of that, because you guys are two different styles, because it blew my mind when I started watching Terry like on YouTube. I seriously
Blew
thought.
my mind too.
Well,
Yeah.
I thought he was doing like Parker Girls like 3 months ago.
Uh-huh.
And they're rolling it. I don't realize it was that quick of a turnaround, like you're
Yeah.
printing it, printer, store.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and then also I talked about he's coming up with the story as he's drawing it, you know, too, like what he's telling me, I believe him. It's like he doesn't know where it's gonna go when he starts, you know, it's like, wow, then you're talking about how you took so many years to make something, so, you know, it's like, between the two of you guys, I mean.
Well, in
how's that?
comics, that's the thing, you realize really quickly, in comics, especially if you're self-publishing, you
Yeah.
get it done, FedEx it it was Ronald's, and then it was Quebecor, and then it was whatever, but it's FedEx, and in a couple of weeks, it was out there.
Yeah.
But if you did a book, all my friends that were writers or whatever, you do something and then it was a year or 2 years
Yeah.
later that it came out, and it was such a totally different animal to have to get used to.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
It does.
Yeah, that too,
It's
right?
like,
Cause it seems like by the time it comes out, you probably have already thought of some new
you've
things
probably
or
gone
whatever.
through, you've already written a couple more novels.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, so.
It's like those actors doing movies, they did that movie last year, now they don't look like that
Yeah.
character anymore.
Yeah.
They go out and promote him, it's weird.
Yeah.
You don't look anything like Scarlet Witch or, Black Widow.
Yeah.
What are you doing now? Well, I shaved my head to do a prison movie this year.
I gained 20 pounds right out of the role.
When we're taking Stranger Paradise and trying to get it into the book market, to get out of our little niche world and get it in libraries and bookstores in a real way. And everything is so far in advance.
Yeah.
Book 4 doesn't exist yet, and they want the cover. And, it's amazing to me how far in advance. And then nothing happens for the rest of your life, and then your children find out, oh, it's in Barnes and Noble now. Good. It's like moving a mountain. A friend of mine kept saying she wanted a calendar of my work, and finally I just looked at her and went, you do it.
we'll have a calendar. So she lived here in Abingdon and she got AAA printing to do it, did a beautiful job. I was so surprised at how good they print. But so we got this calendar and it looks really nice, but we were maybe 9 months past when you were supposed to be talking about it. If you wanted it, you know, in whatever, Barnes and Noble or whatever, there, you know, you need to have it done in right around Christmas, because in January is the convention, conference, whatever it is, where you go and sell to stores and various things, your calendars, and then you need it out by that May or June, because it's gonna be in people's for sale catalogs, and then it comes out by August, September, and then it gets remaindered, you know, by October.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's for the next year.
Yeah, for the next year.
It's for the next year, and it's like, oh my God, it's another world.
This-
You know, you have to get used to it.
You're not exaggerating. This Parker Girls book that I just finished, the second 5 issues are going into a second trade paperback. And the trade paperback comes out like whatever date. And then the omnibus comes out just 2 weeks later for a reason, because we were racing to get it out ahead of the holiday season where all the orders happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like I just dumped it, really. The last issue, the second trade paper, and the omnibus all come out very quickly, and even for the comic book world. And I feel like I'm just dumping material out there, but.
Well, you are.
I
you
am
are
dumping
dumping
material. I am dumping material, and that's my lame excuse, officer.
Speaking
We're
of dumping
getting you the
material.
t-shirt.
I dump material, that's what I do.
You gonna dump, what's the next material you're gonna dump out? You got any
I
ideas
don't
yet?
know. I feel like I should, with this, if I was in the book world, I'd have to be working on something for 2026. It would take them all of 2024 to, you know,
To change
to
it.
package it, change it, revise it,
Yes.
get 100 proofs. Yeah, it's weird when you work with other people and teams and
Yeah.
you're moving around.
Another question for both of you. What was the very first comic or cartoon that got you excited about the form as a child? Not necessarily the first one that got you wanting to be an artist yourself.
Mhm.
What was the first thing that reached out and grabbed your sense of wonder and wouldn't let go?
When I was growing up, my father would take my brother and I out to get our hair cut in the county, in Amherst County, because right across the street, we had an uncle that had a gas station, grocery store, and he would get us a free bottle of pop and a candy bar. So you go into you know, you spend most of the time in the barbershop waiting to get sheared, and they had a whole bunch of comic books for kids to read. And I would read Tarzan and fell in love with the Brothers of the Spear in the back, but you could never read a full story because he never had consecutive issues, so you just didn't see that. And Uncle Scrooge comics, that, you know, and there would occasionally be a really great, you know, by the Good Duck artist in there, and a great story, and be really excited. But it wasn't until whatever, early 60s, Fantastic Four #4, whenever that came out, I have no idea, that I read it and I knew I had to own this comic book. So I mowed a lot of lawns. That's the only way I knew how to make any money. And I went downtown Lynchburg to Peter's newsstand, and they did carry comics, but they had Fantastic Four #6, so I bought it off the stands, and never looked back. I found out that the coin shop down the street, 4 or 5 blocks down the street, would sell their comic books for half cover price. So the older it was, the cheaper it was, which is the way it should be today. And he would call me up when someone, you know, would call him and say, I've got an attic, a couple boxes of comics in the attic, and I want to sell them to you. And he'd get them, and then he'd call me up, and I would get first dibs to go through them all. I get all the science fiction ones. I like the Strange Adventures and all those things. But it was Fantastic Four #4 that made me burn to own it in my hands and be able to read it over and over and over again. and I guess that's Jack Kirby and good old Stanley.
What was it in that story that,
I don't know, that was,
I don't remember?
Dr. Doom,
Yeah. that's
I
what-
think first
Was it-
appeared and.
Yeah, and they talked about him being in the, I almost remember.
Yeah,
this.
I think they
Yeah.
did his
How the
origins.
monks found him and all that.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
remember that.
6 had Dr. Doom and Submariner. It was the first time you're going, the first new appearance of Submariner, you're going, hell,
This guy.
Submariner, I don't know, So, and yeah, then I became really regular buyer, it was about 3 miles down to downtown, Lynchburg, and lots of hills in Lynchburg. And I would pedal my bicycle down there and buy whatever comics I could. And, but they were, especially Marvel, they didn't have the right mafia connection, so the comics wouldn't show up regularly. You'd have number 6 and then it'd be number 8 or 9 or something, some issue. And I loved the Marvel stuff for a while, and then it was DC stuff, and it was back and forth, which ones. And one of the favorite, they're so damn goofy, but my favorite memory is this comic strip that would run in, I think it was Strange Adventures or Journey into Mystery, and they'd have these backup stories, and it was called the Atomic Knights, and it was after World War III, and these people were surviving by wearing night outfits that kept the radiation from them, and they rode giant Dalmatians, because that's the radiation only ever makes things big. It doesn't hurt you or make you die or melt off your ear. And they would run around having adventures, and I've read enough of them now as a grown-up to know they're just incredibly goofy. So, but if they ever did do a collection of them, I would buy it. I know I would. So, there you go. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Mine?
Yeah, you're up.
My first, I remember Sugar and Spike. Very early days. I was probably 1.
Did you read comic strips in the newspaper too?
Yes, of course. Love it.
Yeah.
But my first comic book I remember around was Sugar and Spike, and we liked that. And,
Sheldon Mayer.
But I remember, and then I discovered Dennis the Menace comic books. And then I remember the one that caught me was, there was a comic book that was a little bit thicker, and it was Dennis the Menace Goes to Washington. And it was the little imp being impish with his folks visiting the monuments and everything. And for some reason, suddenly I realized, I thought, you can do that? I mean, he wasn't stuck in his neighborhood with Joey, but you could go places and do things that I can relate to. And it broke the fourth wall for me, because I'm not any of those people in the comics until they go do something I can relate to like that. And suddenly I saw that, oh, you can make one of these fictional avatars and then recreate life with them, instead of just like be entertaining and goofy and heckle and jekyll, So that broke the fourth wall, and from then on I began looking for my avatar in every story. And I think that's why I write the way I do now, which if something is unrelatable like Batman, then I just I just want to skewer that guy. But I feel for Gwen Stacy, because I can relate to that. I can relate to having a girlfriend that you're not paying enough attention to, and you're blowing this, Peter.
Right. Yeah.
Get your act together. That's the story I care about. I don't give a shit what Norman Osborn does. I don't care if he falls into the ocean off the glider and runs out of gas and drowns out there, and then the tugboat runs over him and then a whale eats his guts. Fine. I don't
Not
care.
to put too fine a point on it.
Not to put too fine a point on it. But Gwen Stacy, I mean, she was done wrong, and it was by everybody, including the guy who wrote her.
So did you start reading it with Steve Ditko or with
Mhm,
John
Ditko.
Romita? Yeah, I actually hated Johnny Romita.
Whose hand is that? Ditko. Okay, there's a Kirby hand, Ditko hand.
Yes, but, and there's all these people that love the Johnny Romita art, and to me, it was just bland and kind of boring. I still read them, because it was already a habit by that point, but Steve Ditko, every woman looked exactly the same, you know, maybe a different color of hair. But it's still, it was so weird and quirky that I really, really missed that. And that's, you know, sort of been my whole thing. I always
The only
liked
thing
weird
about
and
him
quirky.
though, I think his Spider-Man was a little bit of a spaz.
Well-
Because he did do all these weird
Yeah,
stretches.
yeah,
and all
well,
this,
he
and I was
was
thinking
trying
like,
for-
I don't think this is a teenage boy. I mean, I've never seen a teenage boy crouch like that.
And get his shoes up so you could see the
Yeah,
full
it's just-
foot as it swung forward.
Yeah, he's going,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just weird. It
Well,
was a little,
having read those and then drawn them, it was really cool.
Yeah.
You know, but I did gymnastics in high school. One, I was too short to play basketball, so no basketball. So I would go over and do the rings and do all that stuff, thinking about Spider-Man. And then when I moved to New York, you know, the architecture is stunning there, and it gets cooler the higher you go. And you're like, well, why did they do that? Nobody can see that. But if you were Spider-Man, you could like go on up there and see all that stuff. So
And
that was part of
again,
it.
my epiphany moment. I read all the Spider-Man stories, and it was like just watching an action movie. It's like watching Indiana Jones get chased, basically. It's entertaining. Until the Alex Ross cover came out for Marvels, and where you are in an office looking out the window, and you're up on like the 70th floor, and the fight is going on outside the window between the buildings, and there's that massive deadly drop out there, and you know, he's on the window stuck on that, and I'm thinking, just that, having that perspective, that was like the Iron Man vent check. I mean, suddenly it was super real, and I pictured that 20-year-old out there with those mean-ass guys and their toys, and he's doing his best to stop them. And from that point of view, that Spielberg point of view, I got it. And it finally felt real to me, and I felt the danger. That was the finest image of Spider-Man I've ever seen. So.
Well, what about?
No, it depends on where you're seeing it from.
I wrote and drew and painted a Spider-Man graphic novel, and I knew right away that I was not going to keep him in New York City, because I was not drawing all those buildings. For, you know, 7 or 8 pages, yes, I can do it.
With all those people behind those windows.
All those people, so I sent him to Scotland and drank a lot of whiskey and had a good time drawing him, so it was good. So, but it also was a it didn't connect up with anything at Marvel. It was amazing that they even did it. So,
Is there any last thing we should
I don't know.
wrap it up and give anybody a last chance to talk? Or I brought a book that I want to give to somebody, and I don't know how to give it out. Who has not read this book? You raise your hand first. Would you like to?
You got it.
You can tear it into 5 pieces and pass it out.
Yeah, let's do a Solomon
Let me
thing
see.
here.
I want you to do that right now.
Let's do
Come
a
on.
Solomon thing. I tell you what, I'll give you the first half and somebody else the second half. You guys have to do it like the old days. You know, brother, what do you call it? Brother clothes, or how you pass this stuff down?
All right.
You share the wardrobe.
Just give him the whole book.
Good
God.
job, man.
All right. Anyway, so it's hermetically sealed, so it doesn't have any of my cooties on it. It's not- Does all of your stuff have your DNA on it? Like,
With
so
suspect,
future
spit.
people can recreate you from your paintings?
Sweat, spit.
Yeah, that's all we need.
I won't talk about anything else.
You know, you could be cloned in the future. Are you gonna be mad about that?
Not if I'm dead, it's all okay.
Or, there's no way you're ever getting away with a murder, because we have your DNA everywhere to back it up, so.
Well, you know, I'm not around Chip Shooter much anymore, so I don't think about murdering.
Good. I realized that about people who are making art, your DNA is on everything, and so like if there was either a murder trial or they want to clone you someday, They have lots of DNA, we need to get some DNA from that guy, he's an artist. Oh, good, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. for
Who
sitting
hasn't
through
read this?
I haven't.
Oh, she went first.
You snooze, you lose. All right, thank you for listening to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Both of
inviting
you.
us. You've been very sweet to us.
Thank you for all the ghosts that are up there.
Yeah.
We had many
Making
join.
notes, I've seen
Yeah.
them, like a little scribble.
They're there.
We should, let's talk about them while they're not here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bye.
Well, just because you both deserve it.
Yeah.